First off, I'd like to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this forum and for everybody taking the time out to come and be informed voters. I think it's very important. And I'd just like to introduce myself to those of you that don't know me and tell you a little bit about myself. After graduating from high school in Northern California, I went into the Army for 2 years. I spent 2 years overseas in Germany. I then went to college, got a degree in political science. I moved out to Wyoming in 1980, so I've been here 35 years. I came out here to be a wildfire firefighter for the U.S. Forest Service. I lived out at Firehole for a year. I brought water samples from the beach into the county courthouse, and in going past the planning office, I went in and told them I had a degree in political science and with an emphasis in planning, and they said, "You're hired." And I worked for 11 years for Sweetwater County as the title was the County Land Use Director, and what I did was I administered the county zoning, subdivision, and planning laws. I then worked for 4 years for the state of Wyoming as an OSHA investigator for 5 counties in southwest Wyoming, dealing with worker safety. And my current position, I've worked for 16 years as the transportation director for the school district in Rock Springs. This is my 17th and final year. I plan to retire in the first quarter of 2015, and I think that's real important because I'll have obviously lots of time to deal with the position of mayor if I was elected to that position. I think the most important role of the mayor is to provide leadership and effective communication. It's quite different than the group that was here before because they really do the implementation. The mayor's job is to coordinate the group, to be the communication through the city administrator, and to communicate to the citizens what's going on and do that role for the council. I think my management philosophy, is that 30 seconds? Okay, quickly, my management philosophy is that the most important part of any organization is the employees. And if you value the employees and you respect them, I think that's critically important in this organization, what we're dealing with now. If you do that, I think you're going to have an effective organization. I think declining revenues is obviously a big issue, and we'll be talking about that, I'm sure. And I'm an optimist. I think Green River has a great deal of tools, and I think we're in a good position to move forward.
Wow, what a lesson I've learned in a year and 10 months of this. My college, 5 years in the arts. I should have took political science. I'm learning all the politics in the streets and alleys and talking to people, and I thoroughly enjoy this. I do. Working with people, what a great pleasure it's been for me on council. I've been married for 41 years. She's sitting over here in the back. She's a pretty lady over in pink. Wow. She's been a pain in my butt for 41 years, but I thoroughly love this woman. You know, I've got 2 grandkids, or I've got 4 grandkids and 2 kids. Josh and Dusty are my children. 4 grandkids, yeah, that's a pain too. They drive me nuts. I got a kind of kick out of this. If Pete gets in there as mayor, I get in there as mayor. We still got bald people on there. When I come on to council, Tom McCall says, I need some sunglasses. Get to me bald people up here. And Brent joined in there, and he comes in there and he goes, wow, that's just driving us crazy. So it doesn't matter. I mean, we're all good people. We learn to work with each other. It's not that tough to work with people through these issues. Money issues, yeah. I would have loved to have been on council when the money was great. I would have just loved to. I heard the other councilman talking about all the great years that we had in Green River. Things have changed a little bit, but we're the crown jewel of Green River. You know, I mean, we're the crown jewel of even Sweetwater County. Look at our river corridor and all that down there. It's just beautiful. What a great place to raise our family. I've been here my whole life. My family's been here. My grandparents have been in this area their whole lives. It's been wonderful, you know, to serve on council. some of the issues that are coming up, yeah, these are really tough issues. Where do we go with this? Well, that's working with people, and it's not hard. It is not hard to work with people on these issues. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
What do you see as the biggest issue facing Green River at this time? And how should the city address this issue?
First come on to council, I spent the first 8 months looking at the money. Every nickel that was spent in this city. Every nickel. I'm a firm believer, if you follow the money trail, you'll find the problem real easy. I mean, everything comes down to money. I keep telling everyone, I don't care if I'm talking about bananas or footballs, it's money at the end of that issue. And be physically responsible with that money? Yes, we need to be physically responsible with that money and hold people accountable to what that money is being spent on. That's all I have.
Well, I think it's somewhat the same answer as the same as Mark and the group before. I think Green River's in a tough time, but I think it's going to be for a limited period of time. It's not all doom and gloom. There's good information in the newspaper recently about increased sales tax revenue, about some of the things that are going on in the mineral industry, particularly in the Laramie area in the northeast, in which mineral revenues are increasing. But I think that basically the city has to take a conservative position. They have to deal with the basics, which is police, fire. Then you move into infrastructure and things of that nature. We simply should not be starting new projects. We should finish the projects that we've got. I think a huge thing is I didn't even realize until I was actually coming into the county building to file for the mayoral position, as a matter of fact, that we have a grants person in the city. We didn't have one when I was on the council for 8 years. And I think we really need to take advantage of that. The other big thing, I think, is intergovernmental relations, and we have to really work with the state and the county, which are major sources of revenue. The mineral severance tax, what they call the rainy day account, the state of Wyoming has well over $5 billion. And it is raining a little bit in some of the communities, and I think one of the major roles of the mayor, and I was misinterpreted, I said we need to go down to Cheyenne and we need to represent the city of Green River before some of these committees and bring back the money to the community. And somebody said, it's going to be the mayor in Cheyenne.
Thank you, Pete. What role do you think the city should have versus private enterprise in economic development? What is your vision for economic development in Green River? The UP Depot, the municipal airport.
Well, let me start with those that you ended with. The airport, I've stated this previously, I think it's, I don't support the airport. I think it's a waste of money at the time, and the depot, I think, is a somewhat different issue. I look at, for instance, Cheyenne, and they have a depot in downtown, and they've done all kinds of things with it, where it's got restaurants and shops and things of that nature. So I think the depot, both as a historical building, centered downtown, I think it has a lot of potential, and we'll have to see how that goes. As far as the city's role in economic development, I am supportive of what was, there was an editorial in the Green River Star that talked about the support of economic development. Most of the communities in Wyoming have economic development professionals working in that community. And I know that Councilman York, former Councilman York, mentioned in his statements the housing development by the college and some of those programs. Those folks wrote letters after those programs and the Hampton development, in which they raved about the importance of having an economic development professional person to work with in accomplishing the projects that they had. I think there's all kinds of other things that we can do. I think we always need to work with our regulatory scheme, our zoning and subdivision laws, to make it more attractive and easier for businesses to locate here. I think there's all kinds of things that we can do with tax incentives to recruit businesses, and I think by far and away we've done a really poor job of promoting the Green River as with all the assets that we have, so it will be more attractive.
Okay, those two items there are on hold right now as far as money restraints. The airport, Wyoming does support air travel, and they are working on that and working with us on that. Until we find a way that that's going to be a positive thing for Green River, a money plus positive thing, then I want to just stay back from that until I see these numbers. We've done some research on that now as far as the blueprinting on that. That's on hold right now until we actually get the numbers and see that blueprint and these cost factors. The depot, that was a good question there. I want to see how that's going to generate revenue too also. I mean, the want factor in these cities is being overwhelmed by the money that we have. I mean, we have to get down to the basics on that. As far as economic development, yeah, keep that in the private sector. The city doesn't need to get involved in that and be competing against these private industries. We need to develop more and expand more as we can. We're land stricken right now. The land that we do have, we're actually making some accomplishments with this. We just did this with FabTech. We give that alley half to the citizens, the neighboring citizens, and the other half to FabTech. We work with those people that develop that. The other things that go on, the Lincoln Tract is now being in development for housing. Yeah, we're working with that. So, and we offered that to the county. They refused it. We offered it to a developer. He refused it. But yeah, we're working as much as we can with the land that we got. There's plenty of land here in the city to work with, and we are going forward with that. So that's good for the city of Green River.
Thank you. Now we'll go to a question from the audience, and this question will start with you again, Mark. What would you do to increase the volunteer base for committees in Green River?
That's a real easy one, Don. I mean, working with people, I've done this my whole life. I mean, it's easy to get volunteers. You make these programs fun, and they will come. I'm telling you that right now. If it's all blood, gut, and work and sweat, you're not going to get too many people. But if you show up with these people and make this fun, the volunteer base grows. You can see that with Farmers Market. Look how much that's grown. I was on the first day one at Farmers Market when that's first thought of, and look how that's developed. I mean, that is a great community event, and the volunteers are coming in there to help. That's great. Make that fun. Volunteers are the backbone of Green River on all these committees and organizations that we do. Rebecca sees that with her volunteer group. If you make it fun, they show up to have fun with this. I mean, I worked with the River Festival, the ice sculpture people. I've been involved in almost 20 different things going on in the city, and we make that fun. And that's how you build that core base.
I think that one of the big keys to all of what's been discussed tonight, in my opinion, are two documents that have been alluded to that have already been done. They've already spent the money, Green River, and whoever the council that was involved need to be applauded for doing this. One's a 2012 document, one's a 2013. It had a huge amount of public input. There's well over 600 citations of different people that were involved in this. They involved the high school, so the youth were involved, and it just lays out a blueprint for some of the things that are that we're talking about here. And it's just critical.
$300,000 for a shooting range in the new police station. How much more is going to have to be spent toward a police station, and how much room is left for storage? What would your thoughts be along those lines?
I'd like to applaud John Love for seeing the future of Green River in that project, and Chris Steffen has been phenomenal on keeping those costs down for that police department building. They were kind of like the lost children there for a long time in the city of Green River. The shooting range, yeah, they needed that. It's a finished project. See, they almost said, well, we're gonna wait and hold off on that. Okay, here's another project. Remember prior council, we start things and we don't finish them. This thing is finished, and hallelujah. We had the money to give them out of that consensus money, so yeah, it was well spent. The police department building, the police themselves have been neglected for a long time. If you look at our budget, Parks and Rec has a great big piece of pie of that city budget. I mean, there's other entities that go in here, this heartbeat of the city that just keeps going on. It never quits beating. And all these people are needing stuff all the time. So they're my favorite children. These other people that get left out. Rebecca, prime example. You've got $1 million building sitting there. That is a crown jewel of Greenriver when it comes into the entrance of Greenriver. I mean, these are spendy projects, but they're well worth the time to do that because this is how you build your atmosphere into your city. And these people are thoroughly enjoying this. I mean, finally they got that thing stuccoed. It used to be yellow, and whew, we was catching some heat on that one. So, and actually, it's a very good, attractive part of Greenriver.
And I would like to apologize too. I kind of just lost my train of thought talking about these documents and not really answering the question on the volunteer base and that whole thing, because I think that's absolutely critical to my agenda. That the first thing that needs to happen in concert with these kinds of documents is to establish people that are interested in those areas and get them involved. And I agree, you make the thing fun. I know that some of the things that were done in the past is that they, when they had the Shrimp Fest, volunteers were given free tickets, things of that nature. So I think there's a lot of things that can be done, and I think it just has to relate to the goals that are there. As far as the question that you're, would you repeat the question?
Certainly.
I'm sorry.
Talking about the gun range and the new police department.
Yeah. You know, I don't have the answer to that. I did go and look at the police building. I know that they were encouraged by the fact that they do have space that they could utilize, and that it would have an advantage to them to be able to use that. I did even talk to them just recently in the last couple of days about the possibility of using it not just for the police department but for public use. And there was all kinds of logistical concerns that they would have with that, but they weren't opposed to it as far as the department, in which the public could actually, and we do know that the public in this community you know, is involved with a lot of kinds of activities where you're using guns, and they said for particular events and things of that nature, it would be an asset that possibly could be used by the community. So I think it would be a good thing. How much more money I can't speak to. I don't know the answers to that.